It started the summer my brother came home from college with three things: a sunburn, a brand new tattoo he swore mom would never find out about, and his best friend, Drew. Drew was, well, I'll say it the way I thought it the moment I saw him standing on our porch that Friday afternoon, squinting into the golden heat like a walking thirst trap sent directly by the universe to ruin me. He had a duffel bag slung lazily over his shoulder, beads of sweat glistening on his collarbone, and, God help me, he was wearing the tightest pair of gray athletic shorts I had ever seen. The kind that clung to the curve of his thighs like they were custom-made. I was 18, just graduated, supposed to be focusing on getting into Columbia next year. But suddenly, all I could focus on was how Drew leaned against the railing with a casual confidence, like this wasn't the first time he'd completely short-circuited someone's brain just by existing. He wasn't supposed to stay with us for the whole summer. Just a week, maybe two. But by the time August was breathing down our necks, he was still there, still in those damn shorts, and I was still losing sleep over the sound of his laugh echoing down the hall after midnight. Our house was one of those suburban California split levels, dusty beige, with stucco walls that held the sun even after it set. The backyard smelled like chlorine and overripe lemons from the tree that had grown wild since Dad left. Inside, the AC barely worked. Everything always felt too hot, too close, like the walls were in on a secret I wasn't supposed to know. And yet, nothing technically had happened. Not then. I told myself I was imagining it, the way Drew's gaze lingered a second too long when I stepped out of the shower with a towel slung low. Or how he always sat a little closer than necessary on the couch, thighs brushing mine, even with a whole cushion of space left. Maybe it was all innocent. Or maybe he knew exactly what he was doing. One night, I passed his room on the way to the bathroom. The door was cracked. I heard a sound I shouldn't have, low, rhythmic, breathy. I didn't mean to stop. I didn't mean to look. But I did. And what I saw, I still don't know if he meant for me to see it. If he left the door open on purpose. If he wanted me to see his hand working slowly beneath the hem of those tight shorts, his eyes half-lidded and staring straight at the door. At me. I didn't sleep that night. And I didn't tell anyone. Because how do you explain watching your brother's best friend get himself off, and wondering if he was thinking about you? And worse, what if you liked it? The days blurred together, long and sun-drenched, like honey slowly dripping off the edge of a spoon. July in San Marcos was all dry heat and buzz-cut lawns, sprinklers ticking across patches of stubborn green, and the occasional hiss of a cicada breaking the stillness. My brother Kyle had slipped effortlessly back into the rhythm of home, sleeping in till noon, raiding the fridge shirtless, arguing with Mom about the thermostat like he'd never left. Drew, on the other hand, moved like a guest too comfortable for his own good. He made himself at home, legs sprawled across the arm of the couch, drinking the last of the oat milk like it was his, and leaving his stupid tight shorts draped over the banister to air out. I don't know what annoyed me more, his casual arrogance or the fact that I looked every single time. He was a year older than me. Just enough to make him feel out of reach. But he didn't act older. If anything, he acted like he was playing a part, always joking, always relaxed, always pulling the world into orbit around him. The kind of guy who made you feel seen in a way that felt dangerous. One afternoon, Kyle was out with Mom running errands, leaving the house weirdly quiet. I was at the kitchen table, pretending to read a book I hadn't touched in days. I could hear the soft thuds of Drew's footsteps upstairs, deliberate, slow. The kind of pace people use when they want to be noticed without asking for it. Then I heard it again. That same low sound from a few nights ago. Not quite a moan, not quite a sigh. Something private. Intimate. A door creaked. I froze. I wasn't sure what the hell I was doing as I crept up the stairs, barefoot on the carpet to soften the sound. Drew's door was mostly shut this time, just a sliver of light cutting across the hall. His shadow moved behind it, slow, rhythmic. I leaned in before I could think better of it. Hey, his voice broke the spell. You want to come in? My heart stopped. For a full second, I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Was he talking to me? He opened the door wider. He wasn't touching himself. At least not anymore. He was shirtless, leaning back on the bed like it was no big deal, his chest rising with a lazy confidence. His eyes were darker than usual, maybe from the shadows, maybe not. I was just messing with my phone. You looked like you were listening. He said it like a dare. I stepped inside. My pulse was thundering. Sorry, I thought you were. He raised an eyebrow. Jerking off. I blinked. He laughed, short and dry. Dude, relax. I'm not a saint. Besides, Kyle jerks off like twice a day and you share a wall. Don't act like this is your first rodeo. I should have left. Should have laughed it off, said something dumb and awkward and walked away. Instead, I sat on the edge of his bed. You're not embarrassed? Nope. There was a beat of silence. He shifted onto his side, one arm folded under his head, watching me. You got a thing for watching people, huh? My stomach dropped. What? He grinned, but there was no humor in it. You've walked past my door 3 nights in a row. Always around the same time. Always when I'm busy. My mouth went dry. I didn't mean to. I didn't say I minded. The room felt hotter. I could hear the fan in the corner whirring unevenly, pushing warm air in slow circles. I thought you were straight, I said. It came out quieter than I meant. He shrugged. I'm bored. You don't get bored and start playing with your best friend's brother. He smirked. Who said I was playing? And just like that, the world shifted under me. The rules I thought were in place, Kyle's friend, older guy, boundaries, none of them felt real anymore. All I could see was Drew's bare chest, the way his gaze moved over me like he was cataloging every breath I took. I stood up. Too fast. I should go. He didn't stop me. Just watched, silent, as I slipped out of the room and shut the door behind me with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. The next day, he acted like nothing happened. Ate waffles, joked with Kyle about the Lakers, even offered to drive me to Target when I said I needed notebooks. I told him no. Twice. The third time I said yes. We drove with the windows down, music low. I didn't say a word for the first 10 minutes. I was afraid of what would come out if I opened my mouth. You don't have to be scared of me, you know, he said finally, glancing over at me. I'm not scared of you, I lied. You're scared of what you want. He said it so casually, like he was talking about snacks or what movie to watch. I stared straight ahead. You're my brother's best friend. Yeah, he said, smirking. That part makes it hotter, right? I should have told him to shut up. I should have said I wasn't into this. That it was messed up. That I wasn't even sure what this was. Instead, I reached for the stereo dial and turned the volume up. When we got home, Kyle was still gone. Drew followed me to my room without asking. He flopped onto my bed like he'd done it 100 times before. This room smells like vanilla, he said. I like candles. Figures. He picked up a notebook from my desk and flipped through it. I snatched it from him, heart racing. Don't. He raised his eyebrows. What, you writing gay poetry in here? No. But I was. Not poetry, exactly. But pieces. Scenes. Thoughts I couldn't say out loud. And more than a few of them were about him. He leaned back on his elbows. His shirt lifted slightly, revealing a sliver of skin above his waistband. His legs spread lazily. He knew what he was doing. I'm not trying to mess with you, he said. Could have fooled me. I like the way you look at me. That made me freeze. No one looks at me like that, he continued, softer now. Not even girls. Not like they see me. But you do. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was full of himself. But he was right. I did see him. And I hated that part of me wanted him to keep looking back. Drew, what are you doing? I whispered. He sat up. What do you want me to do? My throat was tight. My head said stop. My body leaned forward anyway. That was the moment, the edge of something dangerous. Our knees touched. The space between us collapsed. He didn't kiss me. Not yet. But he didn't need to. Everything about the air between us had changed. Later that night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan as it turned in lazy, uneven circles. My door was closed. But I kept listening, waiting for his footsteps, wondering if I'd let him in if they stopped in front of my door. And worse, what would I do if they didn't? It happened on a Thursday night. The air was heavy, electric, thick with the promise of a storm. The kind of tension you could feel in your bones before the sky even cracked. I lay in bed, sheets twisted around my legs, trying not to think about how many nights I'd spent like this, wondering if Drew was awake, wondering if he was thinking about me, wondering what the hell I'd do if he showed up at my door. And then he did. A soft knock, barely a sound. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Another knock. A whisper, "Hey, you up?" I slid out of bed, feet hitting the floor with the weight of something irreversible. The doorknob turned before I could reach it. He came in without waiting for permission, like the decision had already been made somewhere far beyond us. He wore a loose t-shirt and those shorts. The gray ones. The ones that had started all of this. "I couldn't sleep," he said, closing the door behind him. "Storm's coming," I murmured, voice barely above a whisper. Lightning flashed somewhere far off, washing his face in stark white before the room fell back into shadow. He looked different in that light. Older, softer, more dangerous. He sat on the edge of my bed, elbows on his knees. "You ever feel like everything's about to snap?" he asked. "Like, you've been holding your breath for so long, and if you let go, the whole thing might just collapse?" I nodded. "Every night." He turned to me. "So why are we pretending we don't want the same thing?" "I don't know if we do want the same thing," I said. "Or if you're just bored. Or playing some fucked up game because you know I'll say yes." Drew flinched like I'd slapped him. "I'm not messing with you." "But you're not with me either." His jaw tensed. "I don't do labels. You're staying in my house. You're my brother's best friend. You're thinking about you every time I close my eyes." My breath hitched. He stood. Closed the distance between us in one heartbeat. "Do you know how hard it's been pretending I didn't notice you watching me? How many nights I thought about getting out of bed and coming to you?" I swallowed. "So why didn't you?" "Because I didn't know if you'd hate me in the morning." His hands found my hips. Gently. Like I could still pull away. I didn't. Instead, I said, "I already hate myself." His lips were on mine before the words finished leaving my mouth. Hungry, desperate, like all the silence between us had built up into something sharp and starving. I kissed him back. Let it swallow me whole. The storm finally broke outside, rain hitting the roof in waves, thunder cracking in the distance. But inside, everything was louder. He pushed me gently onto the bed, hands sliding beneath my shirt, across skin that hadn't been touched like this, not ever. My body trembled under him, part fear, part hunger, part guilt. Because this wasn't just a kiss. This was Kyle's best friend. The guy who was supposed to sleep across the hall. The guy who wasn't supposed to want me. "Drew," I gasped as his lips trailed down my neck. "What happens if Kyle finds out?" He paused. "Just for a second. Just enough. Then I'll deal with it," he whispered. "But right now, I just want to feel real." The word hit me like a bruise. Because I knew what he meant. I'd been living in a shadow of almosts, almost touched, almost kissed, almost loved, and suddenly it was all happening at once, and I wasn't ready. I pushed him back gently. Not to stop. Just to breathe. He looked at me, eyes wide, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I've never done this before." He smiled, soft, not mocking. "I kind of figured. I'm scared I'll ruin everything." "You already did," he said, brushing hair from my forehead. "But maybe that's not such a bad thing." There was a pause. A stretch of silence filled only by rain and heartbeats. Then he kissed me again. Slower this time. Like we had all the time in the world. Like this wasn't a secret wrapped in guilt and danger. Like we weren't two boys breaking every rule under this roof. We didn't go all the way. Not that night. But we went far enough. And when he finally pulled away, shirt wrinkled, lips red, eyes still dark with something unspoken, he lingered by the door. "I should go," he said. "You don't have to." He hesitated. "If I stay, we can't pretend this didn't happen." "Maybe I don't want to pretend anymore." He opened the door slowly, looked down the hallway, then back at me. His voice was quiet when he said, "Then we've got a problem." And just like that, he was gone. I lay in the silence that followed, the storm outside finally beginning to die down. I could still feel him, his breath on my neck, the weight of his body, the taste of his mouth. And under all that, the fear. Because Kyle would be home soon. Because secrets don't stay secret in houses with thin walls. Because nothing about what happened was safe, or smart, or sustainable. But my door stayed shut, and I didn't hear footsteps returning to the guest room. And that scared me more than anything else. The morning after felt unreal. Sunlight spilled through the blinds, casting pale gold stripes across my sheets. Everything looked the same, books stacked on my desk, the faint scent of vanilla from a half-burned candle, the quiet hum of the ceiling fan overhead, but nothing felt the same. I still wasn't sure if it had really happened. Had Drew actually come into my room last night? Had he really said those things? Touched me like that? Or had I finally slipped into some weird dream loop, all longing and no consequence? A quiet knock on the door broke the spiral. Not Drew's knock. Kyle's. Dude, you up? Mom's making pancakes. Come down before Drew eats them all. My stomach dropped. My body jolted like I'd been caught. Like Kyle had opened the door and seen everything I didn't say. I scrambled into a clean shirt, ran a hand through my hair, and opened the door with the best fake yawn I could muster. Yeah. Gimme a sec. He nodded and padded off down the hall, bare feet slapping against wood. I followed, legs stiff with nerves, a buzz of nausea in my gut that wouldn't go away. Drew was already at the table. His head tilted slightly when he saw me, but otherwise, nothing. No secret smile. No hidden signal. He was laughing at something Mom had said about burnt bacon, sipping orange juice like it didn't taste like guilt. I sat across from him, trying not to look too hard, trying not to want anything from him. And then his foot touched mine under the table. Barely there. A graze. The test. I didn't move. Not at first. But Kyle sat down next to me a second later, nudging my leg as he reached for syrup. I flinched and pulled my foot away instinctively. Drew didn't even blink. Later that day, I heard them in the garage, Kyle and Drew, arguing over something stupid. Whether a car battery should be disconnected from the positive or negative terminal first. It should have made me laugh. Instead, I stood behind the hallway wall, listening. Kyle's voice rose. No, dude, you're wrong. My dad always said positive last. Your dad also thinks climate change is fake. Drew shot back, dry. I heard the metallic clang of a tool hitting concrete. Then Kyle's voice quieter. You've been weird lately, man. What's going on? Drew paused, long enough to make my chest tighten. Then he said, I'm tired. That was it. No follow-up. Just silence. And then the hum of an electric drill starting up again. When I stepped into the garage a minute later, Drew looked up, just a flicker, then went right back to tightening the socket wrench. Kyle didn't even notice me come in. But I noticed everything. The way Drew's knuckles were white on the handle. The way he didn't look at me again. That night I stayed in my room, pretending to study, but mostly staring at the wall. Every sound made me tense. Footsteps in the hallway, the creak of floorboards, the whisper of drawers opening across the hall. When the house finally settled into silence, I thought it was over. That maybe Drew had moved on. That he regretted it, or worse, didn't care enough to say anything. And then I heard it. A soft knock. Not on my door this time, but on Kyle's. It opened. Closed again. I sat up in bed, heart pounding in my throat. I didn't hear voices. Just the dull shuffle of movement. A muted laugh. The distinct thud of someone sitting on a mattress. I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. No words. No breathing. Just space. Dead and echoing. Was Drew in there with him? I told myself no. That he wouldn't. That it wasn't like that. But the doubt crept in anyway, slow and cold, wrapping around my chest like vines. Had I imagined all of it? Had last night been nothing more than convenience? Boredom? A fucked-up power game? Or was he just scared, of Kyle, of himself, of the truth between us? The questions spun in my head until I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Then I heard something. A laugh. Drew's. Familiar. Closer than it should have been. And it didn't sound like a goodbye. I didn't sleep. Not really. Just stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks, listening for the creak of a door that never came. And the worst part? I didn't know if I wanted him to come back, or if I just wanted him to choose. Sunday breakfast was quiet. Too quiet. Mom had gone out early to visit Aunt Claire, leaving the three of us at the table, picking at scrambled eggs and toast like it was a final meal. Kyle scrolled on his phone. Drew just stirred his coffee. I focused on my plate like it held the answers I didn't want to ask out loud. No one said a word about the night before. I still didn't know what had happened in Kyle's room, or if anything had happened. But I couldn't forget the sound of Drew's voice, low and laughing, muffled through the wall like a secret meant for someone else. He hadn't looked at me once this morning. Not a glance. Not a smirk. Not a flicker of anything. It was like I didn't exist. So, Kyle said finally, pushing his plate away, "You heading back tomorrow?" Drew nodded. "Yeah. I've got a shift Tuesday. Figured I'd get a jump on traffic." Kyle made a face. "Lame. Thought you were staying till Wednesday." Drew shrugged. Plans changed. My fork scraped my plate. I wasn't hungry anymore. Kyle stood, grabbing his glass. "Well, I'm gonna head to the gym. You guys good?" Drew nodded again. "Yeah. We're good." I didn't answer. Couldn't. Kyle looked between us for a second, eyebrows pulling together, just the faintest crease. Then he left, the front door clicking shut behind him. And we were alone. The silence stretched. Drew finally looked up. His face was unreadable. I asked too softly, "Was it a mistake?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "It wasn't nothing." My heart thudded. "But it wasn't something either?" His eyes dropped to his coffee. "You don't get it," he said. "Kyle, he's like a brother to me." "So am I." "No. You're his brother. That's different." I stood. "You kissed me." He flinched. "Yeah. And I wanted to." "So what changed?" He looked up at me finally, tired, raw. "You're not just a fling I can sneak around with and then pretend I don't know. You're even more complicated. Or just more dangerous," I snapped. He didn't argue. Instead, he stood too, stepping closer. "You want the truth?" I nodded. "I didn't, not really." He whispered, "I haven't stopped thinking about you since that first night I saw you staring. I wanted you. But I didn't think it would actually mean something. And now that it does?" He hesitated. Then he said quietly, "Now I don't know how to walk away." I felt the tears rising, stupid, unwanted. I swallowed them down. "So don't." "I have to." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his car keys. "I'll text you when I get back," he said. I stared at him. "Will you?" His lips parted, like he wanted to say yes. Like he needed to. But all he did was nod once, tight, then turn away. I heard the door open. Then close. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there long after the sound of his engine faded down the road. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast. The coffee had gone cold. And still, all I could hear was his voice in my head. "Now I don't know how to walk away." So why did he? Or worse, why did I let him? The first time I saw Drew again after 2 years, he was leaning against the kitchen counter in shorts that honestly should have been illegal. They weren't just tight, they were obscene. Gray gym shorts that clung to every muscle in his thighs, low enough to tease the line where his shirt didn't quite cover his hips. His hoodie was damp from the rain, hair dripping down his neck in soft waves, and he was barefoot. That detail shouldn't have mattered. But it did. God help me, it did. That he looked up and grinned when he saw me. "Little man's grown up," he said, voice rough from the cold or the drive or something else I couldn't name. I felt my mouth open, then close. Like an idiot. Like some 16-year-old kid again watching his older brother's best friend toss a football shirtless in the backyard. But I wasn't 16 anymore. And Drew? He wasn't just Kyle's friend now. He was something heavier. Bigger. His shoulders had filled out. His voice had settled into a low, lazy drawl. He was 6 feet 2 inches of tan lines, tired eyes, and too casual flirtation, the kind that made your chest ache because you couldn't tell if it meant anything or everything. I cleared my throat. "You're soaking the floor." He looked down, laughed, and kicked off his shoes. "Oops." Kyle walked in then, oblivious as ever, smacking Drew on the back like they were still high school seniors with no real responsibilities. Yo, finally. Mom made lasagna. We sat around the table like old times. Like nothing had changed. But I had. And the longer I watched Drew, the way his fingers curled around the fork, the way his jaw flexed when he chewed, the way he leaned back in the chair with one leg stretched way too far under the table, the more I realized something dangerous. I wasn't just noticing anymore. I was remembering how he used to sneak glances at me when he thought no one saw. How I'd wake up some mornings to the smell of his cologne on the hallway pillow. How, once, he'd asked me why I never dated anyone in school, and when I said, "No one interests me," he stared too long, like he knew exactly what that meant. Now he was back, crashing in our guest room for a few days while his apartment got fumigated, laughing with my brother, walking around shirtless, and, yeah, wearing those shorts like it was a personal attack. But things weren't like before. There was a tension now. Something unspoken. Like we'd crossed a line somewhere and just never talked about it. And maybe we were about to talk about it. Or maybe we were going to do something worse. Because that night, after everyone had gone to bed and the house was quiet, I heard my bedroom door creak open. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't asleep. And when I turned over, I saw him standing there. Breathing. Looking at me like he couldn't stop thinking either. But what did he want? And what if Kyle found out? When I woke up that morning, the house was quiet. The kind of quiet that only happens after rain, like the world was still wiping its eyes. The windows were fogged. The smell of wet earth hung in the air, mixed with a faint trace of old wood and detergent. I could hear the ceiling creak above my room and the distant hum of the dryer tumbling someone's laundry. It was supposed to be a normal weekend. Kyle had told me his college buddy, Drew, would be staying with us for a few days while his apartment underwent emergency fumigation. I didn't think much of it. I remembered Drew, vaguely, from when they used to hang out in high school. Back then, he was just some cocky kid with braces, always yelling about Call of Duty and stealing the last can of Monster from our fridge. But that was 3 years ago. Now, I was 20. And when I came downstairs and saw him in the kitchen, something in my brain just short-circuited. Drew had changed. He stood barefoot by the coffee maker, steam curling around his face. His hoodie was half-zipped, revealing a flash of tattoo over his collarbone. But it was the shorts, those tight, unforgivable gym shorts, that made it hard to breathe. They clung to his thighs like second skin, the fabric hugging muscle and curve with zero shame. He turned, and for a second, his eyes locked on mine. I looked away too fast. "Yo," he said, voice lower than I remembered. "You're up early." I shrugged. "Didn't sleep well." He chuckled. "Your brother snores like a chainsaw." "Still." I nodded, pretending to focus on pouring myself some cereal. My hand was shaking. I hated how aware I was of him. His footsteps on the tile, the scent of his cologne, the faint rustle of fabric when he leaned over to grab a spoon. I hated it more that part of me wanted him to notice. He did. He didn't say it. But the way he looked at me, too long, too curious, it wasn't neutral. And when he stretched, arms raised high over his head, I caught the barest flash of skin just above his waistband. Was it on purpose? God, I hope not. God, I hope so. "Where's Kyle?" I asked, desperate to cut the tension. Drew poured himself coffee, staring into the mug like it held a secret. "Went for a run. Said he needed to clear his head." Whatever that means. I frowned. Kyle never ran. Not unless something was wrong. Drew took a slow sip, still watching me. "You and him doing okay?" I asked, quieter now. Drew's jaw clenched. "Yeah. We're cool." The way he said it didn't sound convincing. Not even a little. Something had happened. Something they weren't telling me. And maybe it was my imagination, but when Drew walked past me to grab the milk, his hand brushed my lower back. Lightly, deliberately. I stiffened. He didn't apologize. He didn't even look at me. Just went back to sipping his coffee like nothing happened. But something had. I could feel it in the air, like static before a lightning strike. Was it just curiosity? Or something worse? And if it was worse, why did part of me want it to happen again?